So what you have learned?
Like the concepts, whatever you covered yesterday, Ashok.
Okay. That was the reason I'm asking. Whatever you have you done everything?
Yes, Ashok. Yesterday's class, whatever was taught with practice, like exec command, volume, bind mount.
Have you seen how exactly they look?
Yes, Ashok.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to volume, we use only the the folder name, file name. Yeah, when it comes to bind mount, we use the path. Volume is used in the Docker area, and bind mount is used in EC2. And when it comes to security, volume is more secure than bind mount. And like exec command, like Docker exec, it's a command used to it's a new command in running container. It runs a new command.
Okay.
Docker volumes and how, like listing the Docker volumes, how to create that.
The reason we use volume is because like whatever changes we do in a running container it is not persistent. So uh, we use the volume command to make it remain permanent. And creating how to create a volume, how to inspect what is inside the Docker volume. Uh, for creating the volume, we use Docker volume create and the volume name. To inspect, we use like the command Docker volume
Inspect.
and volume name.
Okay. Okay, guys. Now see, I have pulled the image. Last time which we have done. So I have pulled it. Now, what exactly I am seeing here is that I've run that image. So the container has been created. Now, as I asked you a question yesterday, is there a chance without a machine? Can you launch a machine without a network? Is it possible?
Without a network, it is not possible, Ashok.
So now let's see what exactly this network is in Docker. See, here it is showing Docker network. It is giving the options connect, create, disconnect, inspect, ls, prune, rm. So what we exactly know is that the ls will list the whatever has been present in the directory. So now, if you see, there are three different networks. Three different networks. So we have not created it. The Docker itself are using three different networks. So if we want to check which one is been using, which one is being used by the container, which one is used by the container. So we need to go to the container inside. We need to go to the container inside to inspect the container. This was the container ID. See guys, Docker inspect. What is the network it is using? What is the network settings it is using? What is the networks it is using?
Docker
Bridge.
By default, the Docker uses the bridge network. By default, the Docker uses the bridge network. When you are creating a Docker, by default it takes the bridge network. The Docker uses the bridge network to connect from the external, or from to the container to the container. The Docker uses the bridge network by default. When you create a Docker file and when you start running the Docker container, by default it uses bridge network. I'll be explaining what is bridge and how exactly it works out. By default, the Docker uses the bridge network. Now, if you see here, it is having an IP address, it is having a gateway, it is using a CIDR range. Where is the CIDR? The subnet list. Come on. Where is the subnet? It shows us the CIDR. What was the range it has been using exactly for us? Status running, started at finished image, long drive. Okay, the CIDR range is not showing, but here actually we used to get the subnet details, means what is the CIDR it has been using, what was the exact credentials, means what is exactly it has been taking from the range. So here the gateway, which is the first one, means 172.17.0.0. This is the CIDR range. It starts from the 0, and the gateway IP which is using the first one, it is using 0.1, and the IP address 172.7.0.2. This is a bridge network. If you want to see what exactly which network the container is using, Docker inspect the container ID. It will show you which kind of network using. And I am saying it by default, Docker uses bridge network. As I mentioned, there are three types of network. What was there? Docker network LS, bridge,
Bridge, host, and null.
bridge, host, and none. So now let me now see guys. Okay, wait a minute. Let me. So yes, now when we are saying about the bridge, this is your an EC2 instance. This is an EC2 instance. Inside the EC2 instance, you have two containers. You have two containers. Now, by default, the bridge, by default, the Docker takes the bridge container. The bridge means suppose if you want to connect from the how exactly the network is, one is internal and one is external. External means what? The user directly connecting to the container, and other thing what? Container to container internal communication. So all this, how exactly it goes, it goes through the bridge. Means the user, when he wants to connect to the container, it goes through the bridge, and the bridge processes it to the container one. And if the container wants to connect to the container two, it goes through the bridge, and from here goes, and again it goes to here, and vice versa. Same thing. If you want, it wants to connect the container to container, again it's the same thing. Means here the bridge acts as a bridge where it controls the connections. Means the network, how exactly the flow has to go. If the outside connections, external connectivity, outbound, everything will be going through the bridge. It will act as a proxy network where it passes the everything to the container one or container two. And if the container wants to communicate to the container two, it will also go through the bridge. Bridge is the default network which uses by the Docker system. Now it's very good, but there is one issue. What is that? Latency, because there is a between path is there between, because this one has to be the one when we are directly connected to the container one or maybe to the container two. This will go through the bridge. Latency issues, the speed will be a little slow compared to the other thing. Now let's talk about the host. What is exactly the host? What is host? If we want to, what is exactly the host? Here, suppose in the container one, you are running Nginx. Nginx runs on which port?
H
80. Nginx runs on port 80. Now, when you are using the host network, the container automatically uses your EC2 port 80. Automatically means if you are using port 80 on the Nginx, so automatically the container starts using the EC2 IP of port 80. Suppose if you want Suppose if you want to run another container having the Nginx, you will not be able to run it because the port ID is already occupied by the container one. So this is a host directly. It makes the connection directly. Directly it takes the EC2 IP. Now we have seen here, as we see, it is running. It is using the bridge. Let me show you Docker PS. Now it is using what this is using. This is using the bridge network. Now let us stop this one.
Container ready.
Oh, sorry, I missed it. Now, if you want to run Docker run minus ITD. I'm not giving the port. I'm not giving the port. See perfectly. Network host. Which one? I want to run it on the host. Sorry, guys. Docker run minus ITD minus network. What is the network host? The image ID. Yeah, that's right. We have to mention bash also. See guys, it is running. It is running now. I'm not given the port. It's taking the bash. Sorry. Sorry guys. Why this is not working? The command was the same thing. Network equals to host. That was I think we have given. This should not work, but still, let me try. My bad. I have not given the equals to. Docker run network ID host. Now let's go into the inspect the container and see what exactly the network it is using. Anyways, it will be using the host network only, but still, see what is the network it is using. What is the network it is using? Host. Now it is directly taking the container port because I have not mentioned the port mapping at all. I have not mentioned the port mapping at all. It is automatically taking the 80 port of the EC2 IP. EC2 IP. Now, if I want to run another container, if I want to run, it's the same image again. If I want to run again the same one, see what happens. But there is only one. It should create another container, right? Now let's go docker ps -a and see what exactly here. See, it created 12 seconds ago and exited 9 seconds ago. Why exactly? Let's see. See, failed. Why? Could not bind. Why? Because the Nginx is already running on the port 80. Again, we are running the Nginx. It will not consider because here the host is already having only one port 80 and it has been used by the other container. It has been already been using by the other container. And if we are running a new one on the same port, it will not accept. This is a disadvantage of the host network. Just a minute, guys. This is the disadvantage because if you are want to run the same container, if you want to use a port again of a different means the Nginx again, if you want to run again, then we will not be able to use that port because already the port is already being used by another container. For this kind of similar cases, if you want to run MySQL, MongoDB, Nginx, means separate services, then you can use host, which is always good because they are always running a different ports. MySQL runs on 3306 port. MongoDB runs on 5322. Sorry, 5432. So, but if you want to run two MySQL services on a single EC2 machine, if you are using the host, you will not be able to run because it is been already been using the port 3306. That's not possible. Have you guys able to understand the host?
Is that sure?
Are you able to see why it is getting failed? Because see here it is showing the port, if it is mapping to the port 80 failed because why? As I said, the 80 port is already being used.
Yes.
Any questions you have guys up to now for the both? This is bridge, this is host.
To use that port again, we need to stop the container and again restart it, Ashok.
Sorry.
Like once we have used now we have used the port now. It is not taking host is not taking it again. Like to use that port, we need to stop the container and again create a new thing and run it. Ashok.
See if you stop this one automatically this will work, right?
Yes. Okay.
If I stop this container, automatically the other port will work, right? Because if I run that one, it will automatically run. See, now if you do PS, see now this port is running because it is being stopped because the port which is using the port 80, the container has been stopped. Obviously, now this will, the other one will obviously work. If I hit the same thing, it is the same thing only because it is using the port 80. Now, if I try to run, I try to run this container, it will throw the error. See, The container is started, but see, what time it exited? 7 seconds ago. It is running only one container, which we have started it, and the other one, which we started it again. Here, where is it? Here. When we are using again starting, it start, but it got exited in 7 seconds. Just 7 seconds. Why? Because it is failing. If you want to use a same service multiple times in a container with the host, it is not possible, because with the host is always uses your EC2 IP ports. So obviously it is not possible to run two Nginx or maybe two MySQL, two MongoDB or maybe two Postgres services on a EC2 machine using the host network. But the connectivity, the everything, the speed, you will be very fast when compared to bridge network, because it will be using the EC2 IP ports. You are directly connecting to the containers with the EC2 IP directly, as I mentioned here. Any questions you have, guys?
But in bridge, we will be able to use the same port several times, Ashok, run on the same
Yes.
port.
Yes, in the bridge, you are mapping the ports, right? You are mapping the ports, you are mapping different ports. So the bridge take care of it. Now, if you are using 82 for this container one, here you are using Nginx. It maps to the 82 port. You are using 84 here. It maps to the port 84 to the bridge, because the container Nginx always runs on the port 80. The container is running on port 80, but the bridge makes sure it maps to a different port. That's the reason whenever we are running the bridge ones, what we do, Docker run minus ITD, we provide the port to map to that, because we want to run that container on this port P1, P2. I want to run the expose which we have given the Docker file. The port 80 should be mapped to the port 82 of the EC2, so that I don't have any issue running multiple Nginx services on a single machine. This was the reason we mentioned port mapping. But when it comes to the network host network, we don't give the port mapping at all. What we give directly, we will mention minus network
Host.
equals to what we want, host. That is the host. If you want to change it to the host and the image ID. Any questions, guys?
Ashok.
Now, what is none? What is none? None. It's totally abandoned one. None. The name itself present. It's a yogi.
Yeah.
Whatever the incoming and outgoing traffic, nothing is possible through this none network. Now, if I mention this thing, let me show you. Run this. Now, if I go to inside, now I'm just gonna update. I'm just gonna update. See, what is the error it is throwing? See the error. Error 1, error 2, 3, 4. What is fail? Fail to fetch. Fail to fetch. Why? Because it is not possible. No incoming and outgoing traffic. No connectivity will be possible when we use none. Means the Docker container is not connected to anything. It will not be connected to the external. It will not be connected to the network at all. You will not be able to do anything. I am just running app.get update. I'm just trying to update the Docker container inside, but it is not allowing me because it is not allowing me to connect to the outside network, and it will not allow me to connect to the inside traffic also. It's not allowing the traffic at all, and it's not allowing to connect you to the outside of the network. It is not possible. That is the reason the none, nobody means 99% no one uses this none network. No one uses this none network. But why this none is existing is there is some use cases where you want to run some cron jobs which you don't have anything to do. You don't have to do any connectivity. So for that kind of scenarios, we will be using the none network. As I mentioned, the none doesn't allow any traffic, no external connectivity, no incoming and outgoing traffic. All traffic is blocked in none. Any questions, guys?
No, sure. Like when we have no connectivity, I mean over the network, we use none, Ashok.
We don't want. We normally don't use none. We normally don't use none until unless the use case is a different one where I don't want to connect to anything. I just want to run a cron job which doesn't have internet connection, nothing. I just want to run some file which exactly does my work. For that use case, we will be using none network. But 99% no one uses none. This is all about Docker network. Any questions you have?
No, sure.
Now let's see what's the man I'm saying. See, as they are mentioning, Docker installation creates three networks by default. Bridge, as we mentioned, by default it uses bridge network, and the other two are host and none, which we discussed. Apart from this, there are two additional networks, which is overlay and McLaren. I will explain these two networks in orchestration, not now. When we are gone to the Docker Swarm and Docker Compose, we will be talking about the orchestration. Then we will be using overlay and McLaren. See, bridge networks are used when applications run in standalone containers that need to communicate, and the default network type is used by the containers. As I mentioned, these uses the bridge network. The Docker by default uses the bridge network. Host network, as we don't want to directly use, we don't want to use bridge, we want to connect, we don't want to have any latency issues, we want to directly use the host network, then we will be using the host where it directly takes available ports like port 80, whatever has been be using for that service, and the service which is using that port, we can use it. But the problem with the host is it will not be able to run the same two services in the EC2 IP. Launching the container with none network disables networking stack. Means, as I mentioned, it is not possible with the none to connect nothing outside. Means it will not have any network at all. See, by default, you will not be having the same subnet. It will be changes. Someone who actually prepared this PPT means there's a inside PPT which has been given to me. So by default, this will not be the subnet. The subnet range will change according to your IP address. So this is not the default one. But as I mentioned, the Docker uses bridge network as a default for all the containers. You can read these things. Okay, tell me. Docker bridge is created when Docker engine is installed on Docker host. True or false?
False, Ashok. Not on Docker.
Docker zero bridge.
True, Ashok.
Docker.
It's true.
which is created on the host machine.
Now see here, this is a bridge network connection. As we have seen, this is an EC2 IP, and here you have two containers, and this is a Docker bridge. So here, every time when you are connecting it, automatically the connections goes from the EC2 instance to the Docker bridge, and from there to the container, and from the container to the same vice versa. And to communicate between the container to container, it goes through from the container one to the bridge, and from the bridge again it goes to the container two. This is a bridge network, and this is, no, I just want to mention how exactly it has been worked out, the same thing in a different way.
Docker.
See, this is a host network, as we seen. See, the container runs directly on Docker host along with the other host process. The host container one, container two, it is it is directly connected to the EC2 instance. If you are hitting the port 80, the container is running on the port 80, it automatically takes the port 80 of this one. If the container is running on port 80, it automatically takes the EC2 IP of port 80. If it is using 8080, then it automatically takes the containers EC2 IP is 8080. This is host network. Any questions you have, guys?
In none, Ashok, containers has only loopback interface, Ashok.
Sorry?
Looping. Ashok.
Which one? I was not able to hear you properly.
No, Ashok.
Tell me.
In this none,
Hmm?
like containers use loopback interface.
Loopback.
Uh,
Why? Means why you are getting that question?
no, Ashok. Yesterday I was searching in Google, like I heard this word loopback interface. So
See, the thing is that here that none doesn't use any network. It doesn't use anything at all. It doesn't have network at all, because here you will not be able to connect from the container to container at all. You will not be able to use anything. Then what kind of network if it uses also? What's the point?
yes, sir.
Any questions you have, guys? Let me know. So whatever we have discussed from the class one, from the Monday, whatever we have done, I have just written it here. What is a Docker container? Why we are using what exactly the virtual machine versus Docker? What are the advantages and disadvantages of Docker? Docker file. What exactly we use in a Docker file? From add, run, expose, CMD, entry point. Docker build, how to build a Docker build minus T. If you want to tag your account name, repo name, what is then the tag name, then minus if you want to write a custom file for the custom one if you want to run, minus if you don't want to run all the whatever if you are having only one Docker file, Docker build minus T, account repo tag name, dot layering concept as we talked how exactly each layer when it is taking the one image and it is creating a container on container on top of it, the second line is getting run, and again it is creating a new container and deleting the temporary container, and go on the layering concept, docker pull push, how exactly you want to push to the docker hub, how you exactly want to pull when you are just want to take a docker image, docker storage volume, which volume we uses, bind mount, tmps, which one is more securable, and if you want to have more storage, which one has to be used, which one runs in the Docker area and other one to the file system and other one runs on the memory. Docker network, host, bridge, none. What host? If you want to connect directly, if you don't want to have any latency issues, the speed is your problem. You can use host. But as we see, only one service can run, means the same Nginx can only be run on a single one. Two Nginx services can't be run on the host. Bridge, everything whatever the default network what we use is bridge in the docker, and it is having some speed issues, the latency issues, none. If you don't want to connect, if you don't want to connect anything from the container, if the container is like a yogi which doesn't, it goes to himalayas, it doesn't have anything to the inside and outside of the world, then we use none. Docker run minus ITD minus P1, P2, how to run a container, how to start P1, P2 minus V, the port mapping P1, P2 minus V, volume, which is the volume. If you are using min mount, the path. If you want to use volume, the path, and the path where exactly what are the files you are modifying when you are running the container. You want to save it to the volume, that's the path, and the network. If you want to use bridge or host, by default it will take the bridge, but if you want to use a host on here, host image id and the cmd, what exactly needs to be done. What this, if you have any questions let me know. This is a kind of whatever we have discussed from Monday. I'm going to give 10 minutes, go through all through it, whatever you are having, or maybe go through your ppt, whatever you have done, go through it, check everything and let me know.
Sure, sure.
I'm gonna give 10 minutes. Be on mute. If you want anything, just ping me. But if you don't have anything, then I will go to the Docker Compose. I will just explain one thing, and we can close the call. So go. Let's go through it and see. Let me know, because whatever we have discussed up to now, go through it. And if you have any doubt, ping me in the chat, or maybe you can speak.
Yes, Ashok.
Yes, Ashok.
Yashwant, explain me the layering concept. Yashwant, are you there?
Yes, Ashok.
Explain me the layering concept. Tell me what is layering, how exactly the Docker system builds the Docker image from the Docker file.
Docker image. Uh, First, we will write the first. Initially, we'll write the Docker file. In that, we will add. Sorry. From that, we will give from Ubuntu like add,
Okay,
and from
let me do something for you.
Ashok. Ashok, it is in the chat box. Ashok,
You have it. That's
in
good.
the chat box.
Okay, that works out. Now tell me, Ashwin.
For the first time when we run as a base from Ubuntu, it will create a Docker image. From that, in the step one, the Docker image has been created, like 6B. That is the Docker image has been created. From the Docker image, on top of that Docker image, container will be created in the name of add index. From add index, it will create the image for 4D3. From that Docker image, on top of that container will be created, and before that, previous Docker image, container will be deleted. Temporary container will be deleted. From that, from 4D, again, it will create a on 4D3E. It will create a on top of that. It will create a Docker container. From that, on top of that, this file will be created. Run apt get update. From that, when we run that, we will get a image called 7918. From on top of that, again it will delete the previous temporary container. From 7918D, on top of that, it will create a container, and in the name of run apt get install nginx. From that,
Okay,
it will
that's good.
create an image. On top of that, it will run a container, and it will expose to 80, and it comes out with the image ID called 13E8.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Punit, tell me why first time it took more than 10 seconds, but from the second time it is running very fastly, the build command.
Ashok, it is using the cache. Like in the first time, it has built on the top. See, what happens is here from first line it has taken and it has built an image ID over which a container is created, and again over the top of the container the next line is getting executed. Here the intermediate container gets terminated every time after every step. So finally an image gets created, so it is acting quick using the cache, Ashok.
Okay, where do we find all these temporary IDs, temporary image IDs, where it will be present?
These are the temporary image IDs, Ashok.
Yes, where they are present. If I want to see where exactly they are, where exactly the path is.
Log all
Where?
Docker log, Ashok.
Docker log.
Ashok, it will be in overlay too.
all I guess all, Ashok.
Now tell me where exactly it will be.
in just a second. In the Docker file, Ashok.
Where?
In the Docker file.
Are you seeing Docker file here anywhere?
It's here, Ashok, after the container D.
This is image. This is containers. I have first the Docker will be present in where lib, in the variable lib Docker. It will be present in the lib, in the where folder, on that inside the lib, in that side of the lib, there will be Docker folder. Now I have been here. Now if I want to see what are all the temporary IDs it's created,
Images.
I want to see where exactly they are present.
Image, Ashok.
Okay, let me go to the image. Okay, next.
There's only one file. We need to go there only.
Okay. Now.
Layer DB.
Sorry?
Layer DB, Ashok.
Which one?
Is it layer DB, Ashok?
I'm asking you.
Layer DB.
Okay, next.
SH256.
Guys, the image IDs will be present in image DB. The overlay DB is a different thing. If you go to metadata, now if you go to the SHA-256, if you do ls, see, the images, the temporary images will be present in the image DB metadata. Just a minute, guys. Sorry guys, that was a long hold. Now, okay, now let's go back. Now, what we were discussing here. So this is the whatever we have discussed up to now. Please make sure to practice so that you have just started and I'm able to understand, but please practice. Please make sure what exactly we have done, what exactly we have done. See, the Docker, whatever you are learning from this video is more than enough. You can become a pro if you know all these things exactly how it works. So you can become a Docker pro if you know this perfectly. This is the Docker, how exactly it works. We can go to Docker Compose, Docker Swarm, but these are all the things that work on the same thing only. They work on these things only. So now let me talk about Docker Compose. What is Docker Compose? For that, first we have to install Docker Compose in our files. To install Docker Compose, there are only two commands. There just we need to run two commands. This one and this one. That's it. If you want to check which version we are in, that's it. The Docker Compose has been done. Now, what exactly I am trying to explain you? Suppose if you want to run multiple services, means multiple Docker files. Suppose you have an application. Where I'm going to give an example because we will be talking about this thing. So here you have an application, voting application, where what exactly the application is having a backend, front end. The front end they are using Node or maybe Python, and everything. Once if you have backend, automatically there will be database also, because you want to use which database you want to use, MySQL, Mongo, or PSQL, and Redis. Do you guys know what is Redis?
No, sure. Don't know.
Redis is the one which caches, means whenever you are trying to use the front end and any backend application is not working, but still Redis makes sure whatever you have typed, whatever you have entered will be cached, and will be sent to the DB. Once the backend application, means the backend service starts running, it will take this cache and gives you the result. This is Redis. Redis mainly uses for the caching, purpose. Now, what exactly I'm talking it here about? If an application, suppose if you want to run a backend, an application which have a backend, front end, database, and Redis. So you have to create multiple Docker files. For the backend, you have separate Docker file, front end separate Docker file, database separate Docker file, Redis separate Docker file, and you have to run this Docker files. Docker files. What you will do? Docker run for the backend again, front end Docker run. Don't you think it will be hectic that to run multiple Docker files and every time you have to go Docker run, Docker run, Docker run? No, for that reason, we got Docker Compose, where multiple Docker files, whatever has been there, can be run in a single go. What exactly I'm talking it about? Let's see. You have to go to this one, take this path. If you are able to do this, if you are able to install this and perfectly, if you are able to run this, I think you will be able to work it out. You will be able to do any installation of Docker, anything your confidence levels will go high, because this is a sample application where we will be trying from our side how exactly the Docker can be done. Let me show you what exactly I'm talking about. This is a Docker Compose YAML. If you see, for the OAuth application, for the backend, what they are exactly using, leave about the other things. Just see the only the volume, the build command, the networks, the ports, the result application. Here they are using. Okay, before this, I have to go and explain you here. See, this is the architecture where this is a front end porting application, and it connects to the Redis, means it caches everything, and it sends to the .NET, means the .NET is a backend where they are using the .NET, and the .NET sends to the DB where the result means whatever exactly the backend code works out and sends to the DB, and the DB hits to the another front end, that is Node.js, where exactly it's talking about. Let me clone this one. Now, if you see, there are many files. Let me run this Docker Compose YAML file. How to run this Docker Compose YAML file? Docker Compose, the file -f, the file name which we want to run. Up means it will make sure the up. It will up it. You don't have to worry anything. Just run this and see. Exactly, failed service worker, failed to build, failed. Okay, he has used the build platform here. Where was the sample file? They removed it, right? Just a minute, guys. See guys, this is the voting application. This is the voting. They have decided cats versus dogs. So if you vote it, let me give you. Try to vote. Try to vote. We will see the result. Once you let me know if you have voted it. So one vote has been gone. One vote has come. This is the result area where they are running in the port 5001. And what exactly they are running in the 5000 port? They are running the application, means the voting system. And after that, they are seeing the result in 5001, means 2 votes. See, now if I do it here, see, they are actually doing it. They are actually working it out, how exactly it works out, how exactly they takes it. See, it is every time it is taking in the vote is considering it. It is running, it is taking, it is working it out. Now it stopped. Now it is stopped. If you hit, it will not work because it got stopped. Actually, they have modified it a lot. When I was using it, was very simple sample file. So take this git clone. I will ask you, take this git clone, run this docker compose.images.yml and try to see how exactly it works out, how exactly you are able to see and what are the codes it is asking. And if I explain this compose.image file, see, it's a simple image. What they're exactly doing is that in the vote, means in the vote, they are taking an image, docker samples examining app.vote, and the port they have mentioned is 5000. How we exactly run a docker file for the port. And after this, that depends on and everything I will explain you later. Let me not go through here. Let me explain it here. It will be easy. See here, how exactly port from when we are using writing a docker file from you want to, they are saying from out build when we are writing the build, what exactly docker build dot what exactly they are building in the out, and the command which exactly they want to run on the python, from python, this is the one. And there, what are the volumes they are using, from the volume where exactly they are using dot out, this is the volume they were using, to where exactly they are modifying the files underscore app, the ports which we exactly run directly on the docker run minus p1 p2, this is the port. Networks, what exactly they are using, front tier and back tier, they are mentioning the networks as a front and back tier. The result, where exactly they are building the result in the dot result. If you want to see the docker files of these particular things, just we have to go to that in the build for the vote, it is in the vote folder. Just go to that, see the out, open the out. See, there is the Docker file. There is the Docker file. See, they have run it here, but they managed it there from Python. Run app.get update, work directory app, copy the requirements, run pip install, expose port 80 and CMD, what exactly they have done. They have written how exactly the Python for this, how exactly it has to run. They have given this. This is for the voting for the front end Python. And if you go to the result folder, there will be another Docker file. See, same thing. What they want to run, they want to use Node.js from Node.js, work directory app, again, command node entry point. See, they have used Node.js exposing in entry point. Now, if you go to other thing, if you go again, this is the result. If you go to the worker, the backend Docker file, see from platform build, add target from work directory source. This is a Docker compose. How exactly multiple vote worker result. This is seed data. What exactly they want? Oh, for the Python. Okay, it's same thing again. They just mentioned it to generate the votes. Vote worker result and the seed data means whatever they were using here, whatever they are composing it here in the Docker compose file, they have mentioned, see for the vote, it is there on the vote. For the result, it is in the result folder. For the worker, it is in the dot worker. For the Redis, they are using the image Redis Alpine. They are directly taking the Docker Hub image here. For the DB, they are using Postgres Alpine. Directly, they have mentioned it here. So is this is a sample Docker compose, how exactly you can run all the 5 services in a single code where you don't have to run Docker run command. You just use Docker compose and up and down, up and down. That can be here. If you are using Docker compose up, it will be up. If you want to down it, it will be like this. But here it's totally different thing where they have modified some things. So that's the reason I'm saying run this images automatically. So the application will go up. Then you can work it out. You can up minus d means you have to update. It will updating all the things again. Single go. Up minus d. This way it will be showing. Now see, it will be running. Now if you see Docker PS, the containers will be running. See, each container for the oat, one container. For result, one container. For worker, there is one container. For Postgres, for the DB, there is one container. For Redis, there is one container. If I hit, if I hit this, see, and if I hit it here, the results are still there. Now, guys, do one thing. Please vote all for the cats. Please vote all for the cats. Whoever has been done for the dogs, please vote it for the cats. Now, why I am saying about the Redis, right? Now, let me show you. What is the Redis one? This is the Redis one, right? Now, let me stop this container. I'm stopping the Redis server. Oh, sorry, not the Redis one. Sorry. I'm stopping the backend server .NET. I'm stopping it. I'm stopping the .NET backend server. Now it's stopped. Now if you see Docker PS, there are only 4. Now please result all for docs. Please result all for the docs. Are you able to do it?
Yes, Ashok.
Now here from the front end, we will still able to vote it. Are still able to vote it, but we are not able to see the result because the result is not yet processed because the backend is not running. To make it work out, to make it work once the because we are all now voted for the docs. Now once the worker comes back means the backend comes up, the Redis will automatically take care of it. Means the Redis will be taking if you just go and refresh the result, see it got updated automatically. This is the example of Redis where it caches the result even if your backend is not running. We are not showing the error to the user. We are not showing the because the backend is not running, but still we are still able to vote, and the Redis is caching it. And once the backend comes up into the picture, means once it is up, it is directly giving us the result where it is providing the to here as I mentioned, it is taking it here even if it is not able, it is taking your result, it is keeping your vote, it is keeping your data, and once it is coming back up, it is processing to the backend, and backend is sending the data to the DB. and it has been showing us here. Now you able to understand what exactly the Redis does? It caches everything, whatever you are giving it. Did you guys got everything?
Yes, Ashok.
Are you able to understand?
Yes, Ashok.
So I want you guys to try this docker compose -f docker compose.images.yaml up use -d so that it will come out of the bash place and you can see the containers, and try to delete the worker container and see it. You can stop it, and again if you want to rerun it, docker compose -f docker compose -d, take the clone, work on it and use the docker compose. This is just a basic thing. I have already done how to show, I have already showed you how to do it, but still you can go through it and work on it. This is one of the application, because there is a practice project for you how to work on this. Just go through it. Tomorrow I will explain you how what exactly the practice project is, how to make it out. Then you have to do it on your own. You have to do it on your own. Any questions, guys?
Ashok, from where do we clone that Git file, Ashok?
I have given in the here only, right?
Chat. Okay, this one. Okay.
Practice it, guys. Practice it. This is a very good application. It is a very good application where they have done. Before that, they used to have the sample files, ngres and everything, but they have actually removed it everything, and they're just keeping the Docker Compose YAML. Try to run Docker Compose.images.yaml. Don't use Docker Compose.yaml because it's a very advanced one, so it will take time. But use Docker Compose.images file YAML. Any questions, guys?
No, Ashok.
No, Ashok.
Work on it.
Do it. Practice whatever we have discussed up now. Do a good practice. Tomorrow I will be giving you a practice project, how exactly you have, what you have to do, and you can keep this practice project as a project in your resume. I'm saying it again. You can, whatever the practice project I am giving, you can keep it as a project in your resume, which makes your resume looks very solid, very solid. Let me
Yes,
stop
Ashok.
sharing. Sorry guys, today actually